Hey, what's up guys? It's Marf and welcome back to another Asphalt Legends Unite video. Today I wanted to go over the multiplayer experience I've had so far in the main World Series multiplayer. But before we get to that, I want to point you guys to my Instagram, which I've linked in the description down below, because I saw the Gordon Murray Automotive T50 in the Los Angeles forest and it was awesome. I took some great shots and I think you guys will really enjoy it. So I've already covered the Team Pursuit game mode, which is fantastic by the way, and next time it comes around I definitely recommend giving that a shot. And I've also had some gameplay of multiplayer too, but that's more of the casual fun, take out whatever car you want. But today I'm going to talk about the more competitive multiplayer one, which is now known as the World Series. So I wanted to wait a bit because now we are in the second round. And so that is now how the system works, is the 2-week slot instead of a series is now going to be called a round. And after 4 rounds, that will comprise a split. Now don't worry, the splits are the last of the tiers in terms of how the sections work, but a whole year will be 6 splits. So 1 year, 6 splits, 4 rounds in each split. I know it's a little bit confusing, but for me, I'm just playing as much as I want to, and I'm doing my best that I can, and I think that's how a lot of people are going to tackle it, to be honest, and I think that's fine. But today I wanted to go over sort of the demotion experience and the general experience I've had in World Series, considering that it is the more competitive of the multiplayer series we have in Asphalt Legends Unite. So on screen now, you're seeing the first race I have in the Summer Rise Round 1. So I guess it started me out at rank 2350, and from winning first place, I got 30 points and I ended up in Platinum League Tier 4. I believe before that, in the previous warm-up round, I was in the higher end of Platinum, maybe Platinum League 1 or 2. I did not reach Legend League though. But it does seem like in terms of round-to-round demotions, you are only getting demoted in the sub-tiers rather than entire leagues. Now, I'm not sure what it will be like for Legend League. If you, let's say, get demoted from Legend League all the way down to Platinum League, I'm not sure, because of course Legend League is just one tier. There isn't a Legend League from 1 to 4, just like the other tiers do have. Now, the other thing I want you to keep in mind in terms of the demotions is that the demotions from round to round will be smaller compared to the demotions from split to split. So I can possibly imagine after a split you might be demoted an entire league. So if you're in Platinum, you might go to Gold, Gold to Silver, something like that. Whereas from round to round, you might go from Gold 1 to Gold 3 and something like that in terms of the round demotion. Now, rating and ranking and series and split aside, let's talk about the actual experience so far. And as you might have expected, it hasn't really changed that much compared to Asphalt 9, but there have been a few significant changes outside of the gameplay experience that do affect how you approach multiplayer in ALU. The first major thing is the car filters. Now, we did see the actual selection of cars change from round to round, and that was something I was a little bit worried about. I didn't know if they were going to change it a lot or not change it at all, but it does seem like you will have variety from round to round. So if during one round you don't have a good set of cars, you can wait till the next round to maybe get a better garage to climb up the leaderboards. Now, my personal opinion is these car filters, or however you want to call these restrictions, is one of the best things to happen to multiplayer in a very long time. I have played with cars currently that I haven't played with in the past 5 years of Asphalt 9, ever since the game launched. For example, you might see gameplay of me using the Lamborghini Terzo Millennio, which I haven't used in multiplayer in literal years, at least in a competitive sense. I may have used it in the multiplayer 2 seasons, but I definitely don't remember it playing with Legend League in Asphalt 9. So that is definitely the best thing about this change. Now, I do agree with some people out there that some of the car choices are a little bit weird. For example, letting the Tryon Nemesis be played in Platinum League is a little crazy. That car usually wins any race it's in. I do love driving it, of course, but definitely some of the balancing could be adjusted a little bit. But again, it changes from round to round. So that's the biggest change, and it's something that I think should stay, maybe could be adjusted a little bit more, but the car filters are awesome. Again, I've played with cars that I haven't played with in a long time, and it makes it so much more enjoyable. and it also makes the experience a lot more varied and fair in my opinion. Now the downside to that is we still have league mixing, and that was something I thought was going to go away with Asphalt Legends Unite, considering the player base is a lot bigger. Now, to sort of prove that fact, I mean, there's no definite answer. We can't just look up player numbers. Maybe you can on Steam, but not for iOS or Android as far as I'm aware. But I'm getting into matches almost instantly, whereas in Asphalt 9, because I'm in the North American time zone and maybe some players are in EU or Asia, it was sometimes tough for me to find a game in the middle of the day, whereas now that is not the case. So there's definitely more players, and I thought that would eliminate league mixing, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Now I just want to reiterate from a previous video of mine that league mixing in the sub tiers is fine. I'm fine if I'm Platinum 4 going up against Platinum 3 or 2. That might be too much of a restriction to get rid of that type of mixing. But if I'm in Platinum, going up against players in Legend League is crazy difficult. Now it seems like they have adjusted the ELO system, so you don't lose that many points if you're facing players from a higher league from you. So that's a nice thing to see. But then again, I still would prefer if we didn't have such drastic league mixing. The other thing I noticed was how the game mode did not change from round to round. Previously, after the 2-week multiplayer series, we would always have a change. For example, we would go from Classic to Ghost Slipstream, and that was the most common change we saw. Now, in the case of the first 2 rounds for Alu, we did not see that change. It was still Classic, still knockdowns, no Ghost, no Slipstream. Now, maybe that could be as a result of the first multiplayer round being a warm-up, and now we are actually starting the round system. Again, I wish that was more clear from the side of the developers, but if that is the case, that we don't see a change and we will only see Classic, that is going to be a huge detriment to anyone who has invested in certain cars that might excel in Ghost Slipstream. And of course, that will massively benefit players who invested in cars that are insane in Classic multiplayer. And more importantly, at least for me, I think that'd be a little boring. I want to see Ghost Slipstream, I want to see Ghost, I want to see normal Slipstream. That is the type of gameplay changes I want to see in multiplayer, just to mix things up a bit, kind of like the car filters. Now again, we don't have exact word on this, so I assume that if they are going to change this system, it's just because we had a warm-up round instead of, you know, starting right off the bat from Summer Rise Part 1, because that's what we are in right now. So maybe in Part 2, we'll have the game mode change. Now, finally, I do want to talk about knockdowns, and this has been a very controversial thing. And so I want to bring a little bit of nuance into the discussion because, yeah, I get it. Knockdown's bad, blah, 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 and I agree. But I think the real question is why? Why don't knockdowns work in Asphalt Legends Unite multiplayer, specifically the World Series? Now, first and foremost is the competitive nature. It's just a losing situation if you get knocked down pretty much at any point of the race in Classic multiplayer. You just won't win. Again, there are exceptions, and yes, the thrill of coming back from a knockdown is great, but it feels like the universe is stacked up against you when you get knocked down, and it almost always doesn't feel like your fault. So let's talk about why, and the biggest reason is netcode and connections. We are not geo-restricted. It means if I'm playing in North America, I am facing players that could be all the way across the world. Thus, the ping differences are insane. There are crazy amounts of lag and delay between when I should get knocked down and when I do, or maybe the game doesn't detect that I should knock down another player. It's crazy. And so that, in my opinion, is actually the main reason why we shouldn't have knockdowns. If we had instant connections with local players and the knockdown system worked 100% of the time, you could predict how it worked and you could defend yourself and you could do all these different things that could try and prevent a knockdown or knock down your opponent if that's what you want to do. You want to play a little dirty, but we don't have that luxury because the ping differences are so crazy. Not to mention the fact that at any start of any race, you'll see half the players get that red glow around them because they have a poor connection to you. That, in my opinion, is the main reason why we shouldn't have knockdowns, at least in the competitive multiplayer one. The netcode is not equipped to handle the ping differences, and that's fine. I want to play with players all over the world. It increases the player count. It helps you get into a game faster. It makes things a little more competitive. The problem is that sometimes the game can't keep up with these connections and knockdowns feel slow, they feel unfair, they feel unjustified. And if I'm in Shockwave and someone knocks me down, it feels like the game is just out to get me. And yeah, I understand I probably sound like a crying baby. Man, get rid of knockdowns, man, they're so unfair. I lost a race because I got knocked down by a Yesko, blah, blah, blah. But I really truly feel that getting rid of knockdowns would drastically improve the experience. I know some people have called to get rid of collision at all because of course you might get slowed down by a player or get blocked by them. In my opinion, that gives the races a little bit more of that competitive edge and stakes in the race because you can get blocked by a player. And yes, you still have the issue of connections in terms of collision, but I don't think the results of getting, blocked or getting sideswiped by someone are nearly as bad as a knockdown. And again, I think it makes the game more fun and it makes the races feel more visceral. Again, without the crazy effects of a knockdown. So I think keeping collision is perfectly okay. Now, that's not to say that we shouldn't have ghost game modes in the rotation of modes. I think that'd be fine. That would be interesting. It would change the way you approach multiplayer, and I want that. I'm just saying that in terms of the classic multiplayer, the only thing that should be changed is the removal of knockdowns. One last thing that I do want to mention is how I would love to see races with more than one lap. I'm not sure how realistic of an expectation or want that is from the developers, especially because they want to keep it more like an on-the-go racing game, but with more console and PC users joining the races, I would really appreciate a longer race time, maybe at those Platinum or Legend League tiers, just so that the competition is a bit more fair, there's more chance to catch up, and I think that would help differentiate the low-skilled players from the high-skilled players. Alrighty, so that's it for this video on the current Asphalt Legends Unite multiplayer experience. But I'm very curious to hear what you guys think in the comment section down below because, well, this is the new multiplayer and it is a big change from Asphalt 9 in terms of the rules, in terms of the systems. But in terms of the actual gameplay experience, obviously we are still gunning for first place, knocking down our opponents to get there along the way. But anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the video and I will catch you all in the next one. See ya.